Now here's another really horrifying thing about the First World War. The wire has to be cut by the artillery fire which has preceded this attack, or we are not going to make it to the German trench. There's no way, if we can't find a gap in the wire, we're equipped with tools to cut by hand, but there's no way we're going to cut through a 30-yard belt of coiled up barbed wire after the artillery shifts, before Germans in that trench, come to their senses and pop their heads out and start shooting at us. So in bad attacks, and there are many bad attacks in the First World War, it's very likely that this would be it. We would get to this point, particularly in battles on the Somme that the Canadians take part in 1916. We're done right here, and the Germans would start to fire at us, and we have no choice. We would probably desperately look back left and right to try and find a gap. If we can't, we would all be on the ground by this point, trying to take cover in shell holes, and if we could, trying to crawl our way back to our own trench. Now, that first wave of 400 men, if the wire's not cut, generally they're going to take about 60% casualties, killed and wounded. So about 240 men would be just in this small space, a couple of 100 yards wide and 60 yards deep, would be absolutely filled with broken and dying men. And everyone else would be trying to make it back to our own front lines. The second wave in the support line would not have gone over the top if the first wave fails. That's normally the case, although in some battles, a classic example being Beaumont-Hamel, where the Royal Newfoundland Regiment was wiped out leaving the support line. They never actually even made it to get across our own front line. But they would normally be held back if the first wave was experiencing difficulties. And then there's no way to pick up the wounded men. It's very rare for there to be truces to allow the picking up of wounded men. And the Germans in that trench are going to shoot at anything that moves because they think it may be a threat to them. There are accounts, extreme cases. There was a British officer on the Somme who lived 5 days in no man's land before he finally died. He kept a diary of his experiences, and his body was eventually recovered. And of course, the next time we attack, our artillery fire is going to come across this ground. And if there are any surviving men from our side who are still wounded out here, they're very likely going to be killed by artillery fire. And that's the reason why so many of the people who were killed in the First World War were not buried. Their bodies are chopped up by artillery fire hitting no man's land in repeated attacks, and there's just no way to recover them.